Hello, my friends. Okay, this might be a rough one. Welcome back to the 1 millionth episode of the Nobody Asked for This podcast. I hope everyone is doing well, or at the very least, not unwell. You know, not every week can be great. We've talked about this before, to put the pressure on every single week that it has to be, amazing. It's kind of harsh. So let's just say I hope you're having at least a mediocre week at best. It is, since we last spoke, it is May. We have made it to month 2 of Q2. I don't know when I started being interested in quarters, but now it's my favorite thing ever. I'm we can do that in Q3. There's always time for Q4. I'm fully talking like I'm in succession, which I'm not, and I don't really need to be businessy, but it makes me feel special, so I'm gonna keep doing it anyway. Like I said, I hope everyone's doing mediocre. Well, no, I don't hope you're doing mediocre. I hope you're doing good, but if you're only doing mediocre, that's fine too. I'm coming to you earlier than ever before. It's a ripe 6:23 a.m. Okay, 6:25 a.m. Not to lie. I'm sitting, in my good old beanbag chair. I do not have a fresh cup of battery acid with me, but I do have a stale cup of battery acid with me. For anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, because you haven't listened to the last couple episodes, which I can guarantee is 100% of humans, because I've seen the numbers. They're not great. I think in the last 2 weeks, I think the only person to listen to this podcast was me. And that wasn't to listen. It was to make sure that it uploaded correctly. Now you could ask, why does it matter if it uploaded correctly? If no one's going to listen to it. Great point. It just feels better. But yeah, I'm staring at the mug that I used last week. And I think let's see if it's empty. Okay, yeah, there's just one sip left. That's okay. You know how coffee, or maybe it's just my coffee machine's broken, but you know how coffee, the last sip is thick, and it has that beanie taste. At Starbucks has this too, but it's not beanie. It's just oh no, it is beanie. There's little flecks of the coffee beans. I'm gonna say that's an accident, but it provides a nice crunch. I'm all about a crunch. And I think that is really missing in our liquids. I think we need to bring back the crunch. It's just a thought. But yes, since we last spoke, it has been fully spring. The weather has never been warmer. I've never needed a jacket less, but I still bring one everywhere. We're in that time where I don't really need a jacket, but I'm going to bring one because you never know, it could literally start pouring rain in 5 minutes. And I didn't realize how reliant I've become on my jacket pockets. I have, change in there. I have, my full wallet in there. I have, a pair of socks, just in case I step in puddle from said rain. And now I'm I need my jacket because it has all my pockets. Now, you could say, get a backpack. I could do that, and I sometimes do that, but I don't know. I just feel if I wear a backpack, I feel Timothy goes to school, I feel The Simpsons. I don't know if they wear backpacks. I've seen 1.5 episodes of The Simpsons, but I feel like a cartoon character, I think was what I was trying to say. And it's not that I don't want to feel like a cartoon character. It's just that I could also not feel like a cartoon character. Okay, listen, we're going to have an honest moment. Not to brag, but I feel the last few episodes have been, kind of good. And listen, they can't all be good. So I'm due for a flop. And I don't want to speak too soon, but I'm sort of feeling this is it. It's a lot easier to follow up a flop than it is to follow up good material, And not to make this sound more important than it is, because again, we don't have listeners. Nary a listener. But anytime there was like a really good episode, I was like, oh shoot. Like let me try and, pull something together. But if I have a bad episode, I'm like, oh, we're good. Like the bar is low. Set the bar low. I really think we need to bring back the crunch, which, to be honest, I don't know where it left. So, like, I don't know if bring back the crunch is the correct slogan, but we need to bring back the crunch, and we need to embrace the freedom of bad performance and embrace the flop, because all it does is make people not expect good things from you, which you could say, oh, that's bad. But I think that's good. Because then no one's expecting anything. And then if you do really good, it's like you get rewards. People are like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. And you're like, yeah, I can. Whereas like if everything is good, you have to be like amazing for anyone to notice a difference in the quality. So in the honor and in the pursuit of having a fire episode next week, we're going to keep this one chill, okay? Between you and me. I think we can do that. So I do have a couple topics. The first one, okay, so actually, before we get to any of these topics, happy May. This is the first episode, not only I have released this May, but the first episode I have released in any May. Which, if you're keeping track, which I'm sure everyone is, everyone get out your spreadsheets, your Excel calendars. Does Excel have a competitor? Like, what is the Apple version of Excel? You know how, like, there's obviously Excel, and then there's, like, a Google Doc, and then you could there's, like, Microsoft Word, which is, like, the staple, but there's also, like, Apple's version, which is, like, Pages, and then a Google Doc. What is the Excel equivalent? Oh, I guess Google has it. Google Sheets. Okay. Anyway, sorry. I was just wondering. I was just making sure that the people at Microsoft Excel did not have some sort of a monopoly that the government should look into, because I know they love looking into monopolies. They love stopping mergers, which I think is correct. I think they should be looking into that stuff. Okay, not to be conspiracy theorist, but this isn't really a conspiracy theorist, but like, I'm going to whisper this. I feel like it is kind of funny that the government, who is allegedly corrupt, I assume, I have no proof, but it's kind of funny that they're also the people that look into corruption. If I disappear, if there's no episode next week, you know what happened. Anyway, I wonder if I whispered enough for this to be tagged as ASMR and get to, compete in the ASMR charts of the podcast. Because I'd imagine, of the podcast charts, because I imagine that's like a little bit less crowded over there, because there are only so many people who could like whisper everything they do. Because, yeah, I mean, if this is you, more power to you, but still. I have a problem. Not like that, sorry. The problem I currently have at this moment is my lips are extremely dry. And a couple months ago, my lips were extremely dry, and I thought, you know what? I heard they have this thing that you can get at like 7-Eleven or other drugstores or Walmart, where you put it on, and it's kind of like a film, like almost like a paste, and you put it on, and it makes your lips not dry. It's called like Chapstick or something. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like kind of making the rounds. It's like more underground. Probably like in a couple of years, everyone will get it. Like I bet you in Europe, it's like really big there. But I was like, I think I've heard of this stuff. I'm gonna try it. Ever since I put that one swipe of Chapstick on, because I'm not really a chapstick person. Like it feels weird. I just don't like the taste. I don't like having like the feeling of like a film anywhere on my face. So I just normally stay away from it. But it was like really bad, and it was like visibly bad. So I was like, it's 2023. let's do some self-care and, walk into a 7-Eleven and buy the first chapstick I see. So that's what I did. And I've put it on like maybe 5 or 6 times since then. And I swear to you, my lips are drier than ever. Not when I put it on. Like I'll put it on and then it's fine. But I feel like they get dry so much easier. So now I'm trying to combat that and do reverse psychology on my dry lips. So I currently have dry lips, but I'm not going to put any of the chapstick on because I don't want them to get used to it. I want them to figure it out on themselves, by themselves, whatever the English would be. So I don't know. And my only market research to prove that this is a thing, market research wasn't the word, but my evidence, that was the word. Where I said market research back there, pretends I said evidence. The only evidence that I have to prove that this sort of a method, this sort of a theory is correct would be, I'm going to have to take you back to the year was 2000, maybe 11. And I, for 1 week straight, came home from the 5th or 6th grade and chugged a Coke. Now, I'm not just saying the 355 ml can. I'm talking more so the 790 whatever ml bottle. Like almost a 1 liter. Not a 2 liter, but almost a 1 liter. Like I think it's like 800 mils. I don't know what that is in ounces. I can't do the conversion. But then, after I got out of my ritual of drinking the liter Coke a day, which I actually don't remember why I had access to a liter of Coke 5 days in a row. There must have been some sort of sale or some sort of like gift with purchase situation because I can't imagine that was just purchased for fun. But anyway, I started getting a terrible headache. I would come home at 4, not reach for the bottle of Coca-Cola, and develop a massive headache that at the time I would have described as a migraine. I now know migraines are something else. I was not having a migraine. I was just dramatic. It's called being realistic and self-aware. So all of that to say, how I got out of that funk was I just didn't have Coke anymore. And I had a headache for probably 2 or 3 days after that. And then it went away. So that is what I'm doing with my chapstick. So fingers crossed it worked. I will, of course, be giving updates next week. I'm sure everyone will be waiting on pins and needles for these updates, but don't worry, they're coming. Okay, back to my regularly scheduled complaining. As I mentioned before, always trying to better myself. I believe I mentioned that before. If I've not, I'll mention it now. I'm always trying to better myself. And part of that is trying to, really have it sink in that, not everything is about me. And in my journey of making sure that not everything is about me, all I can do is point out other things, people's, places, ideas that make it all about them. And the biggest offender of this notion is Central Time. Now you could be asking yourself, what does a time zone have anything to do with anything? How can a time zone be selfish? How can a time zone be narcissistic? How can a time zone take itself more seriously than other time zones? Let me tell you how. Anytime I'm watching a TV commercial, now linear TV that you watch on that box thing that, the cable company comes to install to your house every once in a while, it's kind of going out the window. But when it did exist, all you heard all day long was coming on 8/7 Central. Why did we need to know Central Time? Why did that need to be a marquee thing? Why did that need to... Do they think we're dumb? Do they think we can't do the math of, 8 minus 1 is 7? Did the Central Time people decide that they needed their own time? Like is the IQ... And I'm not saying this is the case. I'm just saying, is the IQ of the Central Time regions so much lower compared to the other regional time zones, to the point that the TV people saw it of the utmost importance to call out to the time zone, to the central time zone, and give them their own invitation to come watch. Because as a Pacific person, Pacific time, I have to do the math. Okay, 8 o'clock minus 3. I have to minus 3. Because most of the time, from my understanding, at least where I am, they give you the TV time in Eastern time. So I have to do, okay, 8, take away 3, 5. That's tough stuff. That is hard work. I have to like get my fingers out. I'm like, okay, if I have 8 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank gosh I go to sleep before like 12 because I don't have enough fingers to do the math of what 12 take away 3 is. But with a calculator, my mediocre math skills as they are, and a prayer, I'm able to do it. So if I can do that, if I can take away 3, why can't the central people take away 1? And again, as many things that I complain about, I'm sure that there is a reason, there's an explanation. Someone will be like, oh yeah, like if anyone listened to this, obviously people don't listen to this, but if anyone listened to this, they could be like, oh yeah, it's because of that, because, you know, the person who invented television was from Central Time. I'll be like, oh, okay, cool. Until this point, I have never come across a explanation or an answer. And because a lot of the things that I complain about in a joking way, in a funny way, you know, some of my bits, as you could say, because those things usually have very simple solutions that then make it not funny anymore, I've decided that I'm not going to look up any of these questions. I would, at a time before today, I would have Googled it. But then when you have the correct answer, you just sound stupid, honestly. Like if I Googled it and there was like a perfectly logical, rational explanation, I'd be like, well, then what the hell was the last 10 minutes of me talking for? And I just don't want to feel that way. I want to feel justified, I want to feel important, and I want to feel alive. And this is how I do that. So Central Time, I have nothing against Central Time. Also, what is Central Time? I assume it's in the center, but the center of what? The center of what? North America? I don't know. I'm skeptical. I have to say, I'm not going to pretend like I'm not. Speaking of me being stupid, I have a call to action, so to say. I have a PSA. I have a cry. It's almost a cry for help, but it's not help for me. It's help for everyone else. In a sense, you could argue. Every time I, need a mental break, which is quite frequently, I log on to, a social media place so I can view media in a social manner, as many do, as most people, on this side of things do. Side of what, you might ask? I don't know. I don't know what I meant by that, but I said it. So a lot of people do. And every time I go on, I see some video explaining to me something that I'm supposed to be shocked to find out about, some sort of everyday appliance, everyday tool, everyday food, everyday something. Now, let me give you an example. Yesterday, I went on to, I think it might have been a Twitter, and I saw a video that apparently we are supposed to be finding little knives, like little plastic knives, underneath our jars of Nutella. Like what? Another example. Apparently, the lid for a mustard bottle is supposed to be arranged such that if you pull it back, it like snaps into the base of it, so that when you're pouring mustard, the top doesn't fly over the stream of mustard. Okay, like both of these things, and there's other examples, but we'll stick with those for now. Both of these things are products that I interact with quite frequently. I would say if you did like a pie graph of my diet, it would consist of 20% mustard, 20% Nutella, 60% meat and alternatives. I don't know. Whatever that other category is. But I just feel like if that is genuinely the purpose for these things, like we're actually supposed to be finding Nutella or mini knives underneath our Nutella, and the mustard bottle is coming with a safe space for the lid to hide. If that's actually what these designers, these product makers, these companies want us to do, why are they not like advertising that? Like, why did I have to find out about these special features from someone in Nebraska who does like tutorials on how to exist as a human? You know what I mean? It's like, if they're putting the money, the effort, the funding, like if they were in a boardroom and we're like, you know what we could do? Let's start putting Willy Wonka style hiding mini knives into our Nutella. Like, okay, that sounds cool, but like, do they think that we don't have a knife? Because trust me, Nutella is utensil optional. You can just use your hand. You could just, like, if you were doing bread, you could almost do like a charcuterie, or whatever that's called. Charcuterie. You could just do a dip. Also, mustard, like, is that how the Mr. and Mrs. whoever French's designed the bottle? Like, was it supposed to be that way? Or is that a coincidence? Because again, I feel like if we were supposed to know that that's how they wanted us to do it, they would have made it a lot simpler, a lot clearer. I don't know. And these things happen all the time. I wish I could think of off the top of my head better examples. But like, it's these random like video, like 6-second clips of like, oh, I didn't figure this out until today. And it's like, well, are you making this up? Are we just going around and finding like a vacuum and being like, oh, if you put your vacuum, it's actually supposed to go into the gas tank of your car and suck out the $50 bill that the car makers put into every tank of gas. And then they're acting like I'm an idiot for not knowing that, when Nissan never informed me of that information. The people at Honda, their money is just going to waste because there's just $50 bills in our gas tanks that they didn't tell us about. But in this scenario, of course, Honda is Nutella, and the $50 bill is a little plastic fork that knife rather, that I'm sure will break in like 2.5 seconds. Actually, speaking of Willy Wonka, I was doing some reflecting earlier, as I like to do. Willy Wonka is a straight-up horror movie, and I don't get it. I don't know why it's been allowed. I don't know why it's like rated PG. If anyone who doesn't know, Willy Wonka is, I think it started from a book, and then it was a movie, and then it was a newer movie. I only know the newer movie, so if you're a fan of the book or the first movie, not the first movie like they did a sequel, but like the first iteration, I don't know what to tell you. I never saw it. I didn't participate in that narrative. But what I can tell you is the newer version is terrifying. Basically, I can run down the plot really fast. Wonka Factories is this like chocolate factory, and then Charlie in the chocolate factory. Charlie, the titular character. Charlie, his family's not doing too well. They're not doing too hot. Financially, very cutting edge. Honestly, like they were living in inflation times. They predicted it. But unfortunately, his family's not doing too well. But then Willy Wonka decides he's going to open up his chocolate factory, which is in like the Times Square. It looks like Buckingham Palace, right? There's like chaos around it, but then it's all gated. And it's this like pristine building that I guess no one has been into since someone stole his recipe in like the early 80s. I don't know if this is based off a real life. I don't know if the book is like a children's book. It sounds kind of like children's booky, but like not too like Dr. Seuss-ish, like more like grade 3 novel study type book, if that is making any sense. Which I highly doubt. I think the sense that I am making in this episode is quite minimal. But listen, I like I said in the beginning, I'm coming off a streak of like pretty good ones, so you're just gonna have to bear with me. Although, you know what's kind of messed up? The episodes that get literally zero listeners are always the best ones. And then the ones that, like, I swear to you, I have one YouTube video. I get 0 listens on like actual podcast platforms. For whatever reason, in the YouTube videos, I've talked about this before, if I put like a title that has a commonly searched or like a trademarked name, for whatever reason, it gets like upwards of 80 views. Now, to me, that's 80 times more than I get. In the grand scheme of life, that's like embarrassingly low. But yeah, like I think I had an episode that had something to do with the filet of fish, and that got like 80. Now, was it a good episode? No. Did more people hear it than have ever listened to this podcast in my life? Yes. And by that I mean more people heard the first 3 seconds. Yeah, I guess after like the 3-minute mark, I'm in total freedom mode, because really no one's making it past that. This is something to debrief in my creative meetings with my team that involve me and no one else. But Willy Wonka, back to what I was saying. It was based on a book. I don't know if the book was based on reality. Maybe it was based on a memoir. That's always an option. I hope one day my memoir gets turned into a horror film that's like has creepy chocolate factories involved. Listen, a guy can dream, okay? Back to what I was saying. So this chocolate factory is like the Buckingham Palace of wherever the heck these people live. Willy Wonka decides, I'm going to let 6 kids in, or maybe it wasn't specifically kids, maybe it was just like 6 participants, and the selection of the 6, I pulled the number 6 out of my ass, but I'm like, actually think I might be right, which is terrible for my New Year's resolution of stop pulling stuff out of my butt, because I'm kind of good at it, but the positive reinforcement of me doing this correctly is, not a good sign for me to cease doing this in the future. But anyway, 6 kids are randomly selected to go into the Willy Wonka facilities. This was pre-COVID, so they didn't have to do a scanning. They didn't have to do a health check or whatever, or wear a mask. But let's just stop there, right? 6 kids are going into the factory of a creepy person. They did get to bring a guardian, which is good and necessary. But just that alone, a little creepy. I didn't really explain. They were randomly selected based on if they got a golden ticket in their chocolate bar. Willy Wonka went around and put 6 golden tickets into the chocolate bar. Into chocolate bars everywhere, and then there was this mad rush. It was basically Black Friday every day at all these candy stores until all 6 tickets were claimed. Now, I don't know if where they live is if it's one city, just the surrounding maybe 10-mile radius of Buckingham Palace, Willy Wonka factories, or if it was a global search. I actually have no idea, because I watched this movie one time 15 years ago at this point. But so it's all based on memory. So take this with a grain of salt. I'm basically satire, okay? I'm just going to say it. I am a figment of all of our imaginations. But back to Willy Wonka for the 17th time. He invites these kids into the factory, and one by one, it turns into Survivor. And I think one of them gets picked off because he not drowns. They all make it to the end of the film. They all see the credits, so it's not like these kids are ceasing to exist. But it almost feels like they made the choice to show them alive at the end of the film, because they did some sort of a test screening of the original cut where they did not make it, so to speak. But I think one of them, gets eliminated or whatever because they eat too much candy, which, okay, fair enough. I would say that that's the normal kid. You're going to a chocolate factory. You're not going to get sick in the first hour. You're just not doing it right if that's the case. And then I think another one of them turns into some sort of a balloon because she ate a piece of gum that tastes like a Thanksgiving dinner, but it wasn't done testing yet. She basically did the prototype version of this gum. She unfortunately turned into a blueberry, so they had to let her go. One of the other kids, I think, went down some sort of almost a water slide situation, because she wanted to buy a squirrel. She said the famous line, "Daddy, I want a squirrel." The dad was like, okay, we can get you a squirrel after. Like, this is not priority right now. We're like trying to take a tour of this, chocolate factory. And she's like, Daddy, I want a squirrel now. And she got her squirrel, and she got herself kicked out of the running. Now, exactly what the running is, I don't know. I don't actually know, like, what the point of any of it was, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like I vaguely remember, and again, I saw this movie when I was maybe 7, but I feel like maybe Willy Wonka wanted to retire, and they were gonna, like, he was gonna give them the chocolate factory, but it's all very confusing. Basically, the end of the movie, I think Charlie wins the chocolate factory, and I can't remember if he accepts it or declines it. I feel like he declines it for, like, a really noble reason. He's like, well, if my family can't... Oh, maybe that's what it was. Maybe he could keep the chocolate factory, but, like, only he could live inside the chocolate factory. And he was like, but my family... He was British, I believe. He was like, but my family, they live in a shed, and all we eat is cabbage. I believe they ate cabbage soup in the beginning of the film. And then he was like, but I can't do this. And then I'm sure at the end, like, he did get the chocolate factory, or maybe he took the... sometimes when you win the lottery, which I do frequently, you could buy, like you could take, like, a percentage of something, or just, like, a flat rate win. Or maybe I'm confusing it. Okay, think of the Lay's chip contest. Does anyone remember that? Where you could, like, name a flavor? Like, you could submit your flavor questions, or, your flavor ideas. And then 4 ideas would be chosen. They would make those flavors, and then people would vote on which was the best of the 4. And then the winner of that vote would be, like, a chip that they would start selling, like, more permanently. And then you could choose if you wanted, like, $1 million or, like, 2% of the sales till the rest of time. Maybe he picked, like, that option. You know what? Maybe the memoir that Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was based on was not one about chocolate, but about the Lay's Name Your Flavor contest. I'm being very jumpy. I used to get all 4 flavors when they used to do this contest, when they would release the contenders. I used to get all 4 flavors, and let me tell you, they were all awful. I love a chip. They were all, like, they were aggressively, like, meat-based. It was always, like, a pastrami sandwich, which I like a pastrami sandwich. Do I need my potato chips to taste like a pastrami sandwich? Absolutely not. Or it'll be, like, steak and lobster. It's like, well, no one needs that. Or they would do, like, onion mac and cheese. Oh, so sour cream and onion is essentially what you're giving me. You're giving me a sour cream and onion chip. Don't even get me started on how this reminds me of the mystery Oreo. Oreo a couple years ago, and I will turn off my mic. Don't worry, my phone is dying at 3% anyway, so this really can't go on much longer. The Oreo mystery flavor. I want to say this was, like, the year before COVID, so, like, about 2019. We almost made a full episode without naming COVID. There's always next week. I want to say it was about 2019. They released this mystery flavor. I was pumped. I basically acted like the people in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory looking for a golden ticket. I was going to find a golden ticket, and that golden ticket was whatever Oreo was underneath the seal of the mystery box in the aisles of the supermarket. So I finally got my hands on it, and at this point I had tried every Oreo that the good people at Oreo Corporation have offered me. So I unwrap the mystery Oreo, I take a bite, and the flavor that they were presenting me was not a mystery at all. It was just the repackaged cinnamon bun Oreos. Because the mystery flavor, I came to find out literally months later, was a churro, which is shockingly similar to the cinnamon bun Oreo. Because it's the same flavor. It is a vanilla flavored Oreo with cinnamon. That's it. That was the big mystery. The big mystery, I found the real mystery. The real, Sherlock Holmes detective work was done by me, and I found that their least popular flavor, I think at the time allegedly, was cinnamon bun. So I think the good people at Oreo put their heads together, put their, cookies together, There's some smart cookies over there. That's the one. I knew there was a joke in there somewhere. They decided, you know what? We have all these cinnamon bun Oreos lying around. Screw it. Let's just, hey, strike out, call marketing, strike up some sort of mystery Oreo box flavor. We're going to shove all of the cinnamon bun Oreos in those boxes. I assume there's like a separate team that works on that part. And we're going to call it churro. And we're going to call it a day, and we're going to be rich. And needless to say, I bought 10 boxes. So if anyone would like a 2019 branded version of the mystery Oreo, you can either check my Etsy store, my eBay account, or contact me in a DM. Real inquiries only. No solicitation. Yeah, so I don't know. I think I started about 3 stories there. I maybe finished one, left kind of 2 on a cliffhanger. Maybe to be continued next week, maybe not. Probably not. No promises. But I feel good. I feel good about what we accomplished today. So I'm going to end by saying thank you so much for spending your time with me. Thank you for a not full year yet. We still have a few more, maybe a month or so before we get to a full year. But thank you for listening to me in every month of the year, even though none of you did, like literally not one person. And I have proof, okay? So don't come to me saying how big of a fan you are yet. You know, let's make sure the numbers are backing your claims. But yeah, I'm gonna say it anyway, just for ceremony. We can be found at podcastnobodyaskforthis.podbean.com. We have an Instagram, a Facebook, a Twitter, a TikTok, and yeah, we're on Apple, Spotify, anywhere podcasts can be found, except places in which you have to pay to get your podcasts to be found at those places. That just didn't feel like the greatest financial decision I'd ever made. So I just went with the free options, which is pretty good, actually. Yeah. Thank you. Have a great week. Have a great weekend. And I will see you next week. Bye.